Welcome to this week's edition of the Life and Legacy Show, sponsored by the Seckler Law Firm, where great families make great estate plans. My name is Tim Seckler, and I am here to do this radio show with the hopes of bringing you some education, some information, some things you might need to know to help you and your family. And this week, if you happen to be catching this live on the radio, you are listening to it at 9 a.m. on Christmas morning, which I have to tell you, I think is a tough time to do a radio show on estate planning. And I called the radio guys and I said, "You sure you don't want to just run some Christmas carols at 9 a.m. on Christmas morning?" And they said, "No, we're gonna do regular programming." And I said, "Well, okay." So first, if you are listening to this live, or if you're listening to it, whenever you're listening to it, Merry Christmas to you. It is. Perhaps you're running between houses and going to open some more presents. Perhaps you got the kids in the car. Perhaps you're going to go visit the grandkids, and that's how you caught this on the radio. Perhaps you're just tired of listening to Bing Crosby and you turned it off the other radio station just to get a change of pace. But in any event, thanks for joining me this morning. And we're going to do our best to do a message about estate planning that's relevant to Christmas morning. Obviously, I've got this show pre-recorded this week, and my children are little guys, so we're blessed to have 3 little kids. And so if you're listening to this at 9 a.m. on Saturday, you can probably imagine me knee deep in wrapping paper somewhere around the house, putting batteries in toys or trying to figure out how to get something to work or putting it together. I probably have a screwdriver in my hand and am going through all of the joy of Christmas morning while having little guys in the house. So Merry Christmas to you. So I was checking the news this week, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but I saw an article that made me really pause and think about what they're calling the Christmas comet. So there's a comet. If you're not familiar with this story, there's a comet up there that is visible at night. I think it was closest to Earth a couple of weeks ago, but you can still see it. And it's a comet. Its proper name, I think, is Leonard, but they've called it the Christmas comet just because of the time when it appeared. And the last time this comet came by Earth was something like 80 or 90,000 years ago, and the next time it'll be visible is something like 80 or 90,000 years from now. And I just sat and I pondered this for a minute, which is beautiful to us. The Christmas comet. We can look up there and we can see, this beautiful sight that God or the universe has provided to us, but it also made me think. It also made me feel, I suppose, really small. This comet's been out there floating around in space for eons. And the last time it flew by here 88,000 years ago, people didn't know what the heck to make of it. Who knows what 88,000 years from now it looks like. And, this may be the only time in the human experience where anybody enjoys this thing. And you look up there and you just think about the fact that comet doesn't give a darn about us. We can call it the Christmas comet if we want to give it a name, but it's going to be there long after me, and it's going to keep going. It's going to be there long after this planet probably, and this entire experiment. And it made me think about all the stress that I have, whether it be in parenting or practicing law, owning a business, all the different things that we encounter in these things that are such big deals to us. And at the end of the day, they're really not. Eons from now, nobody's going to remember what I did. I work hard to do meaningful work for people, and I try to help them, tell their family's story and put their desires on paper with what they want to have happen when they pass away, and who they want to control if they're sick, and how can we protect their stuff from long-term care expenses and whatnot. And I think that's all valuable work, but in the grand scheme of things, all of our stressors are pretty small. And when you think about that, then what's it all about? And what it's all about is enjoying the little moments, like hanging out with my kids this Christmas morning. So take a moment, if you haven't already, get away from the hustle and bustle, get away from the Christmas carols, get away from watching Christmas Vacation or Elf or any of those things. After your church service, if that's your style, find a couple of minutes of just quiet and just relax and just think about all the blessings you have, whether it be watching little kids open Christmas presents on Christmas morning, whether it's any other thing that brings you joy, just visiting with friends or neighbors or visiting church, and just reflect on how lucky we all are. I tend to think a lot. My wife has me working on this gratitude journal, where she began this practice every morning. She's got this little journal and she writes something in there that she's grateful for. And she bought me one, and I can't say I'm as consistent as she is doing it every morning. But I do from time to time take a second and just think about how lucky I am and how grateful we are for what we have. And, it really starts for me with being born in the United States. I mean, after having served in in the military in Afghanistan and seeing some things that I saw there, most Americans take for granted just how lucky we are to have been born in this country at this time. I was explaining to my children not too long ago about how lucky they are. There's only 300 and some million Americans out of a total world population of 8 billion people, and we're just blessed to have what we have and to be where we are. And anybody that doesn't think that they're lucky needs to just sit back and think, yeah, you are. You are lucky, and we all have our challenges, and some people are lucky in different ways than other people. But if you're listening to this radio show, odds are you've had a good dose of good fortune the day you were born. And just take a second and keep that in mind when your day-to-day stressors come and go. In the grand scheme of things, we've all got it pretty good. And here on Christmas morning, I'm just thankful to be experiencing that. And so what do we do about it? Like, how do we protect this? How do we acknowledge that we've all been blessed? If you have kids, if you have family, so we could do a couple things with this radio show this morning. One thing I was thinking about doing was talking about the Ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future, right? Thinking back, this is just one of those that time of year where you get to spend time with family, you get to spend time thinking about family, you get to spend time remembering. Kids want to know what my childhood Christmases were like, and so we've talked an awful lot about it and shared some stories and whatnot. But I can't help as an estate planner to think about the Christmas future, right? And in all of the future little moments that I'm going to have with my children, Lord willing, but what happens if I can't? What happens if something gets in the way? A disability, a death, an illness, something, with all these blessings I've had, the ability to accumulate some money, the ability to have healthy children, the ability to have a nice home, I think it's easy to take these things for granted. But when I think in having these blessings, they come with some responsibility, happiness to me is experiencing those little moments, usually with family or friends, and also the role that I have as the parent. I have these 3 little kids, and I'm trying to raise them to be good little humans, and part of my responsibility is to make sure that education and that these opportunities and that the blessings that we have and the treasures that we have are not wasted, are not blown if we do have some unfortunate luck at some point in time. And so, being that I'm thinking a lot about my kids, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about planning for little guys. If you have young kids, if you have young grandkids, if you're not confident that those little guys are well planned for, then here's a couple of thoughts. One of the mistakes that I see young parents of young kids making is being underinsured. So that could be a number of different things, but disability insurance, life insurance. Lots of families, lots of parents that I see really just take whatever the company plan is, if there is one, or they buy a term policy, for real cheap. Life insurance is something you need to really think about, and there's a rule of thumb. that you can think about, that try to buy enough life insurance to where if you passed away, your income is replaced by the interest that that life insurance could make. So, a simple example would be if you make what, $50,000 a year, and that's what your family needs to get by, then what amount of money would it take that the interest on that money could replace your income without eating up principal? And the answer would be, well, if we had a 5% interest rate, the answer would be about $1 million of term life insurance. And then that way, $50,000 could be there indefinitely for my family without eating up the principal and without cannibalizing itself. But a lot of families are woefully underinsured. Now, I don't deal in life insurance. I'm not licensed to deal in life insurance, but I can tell you, a lot of parents of young children are underinsured in that in that category, and need to do some things about it. So perhaps if we transition out of the Christmas and into the New Year's, and you're making your to-do list, perhaps one of them is go out and get some more life insurance. But then the question is, okay, if I do pass away, let's just say that I've got enough life insurance, and here comes the money. That's not the end of the story, right? Money doesn't replace what I'm doing as a father. It's a component. I make money, and that money is used to raise my children and provide them with opportunities. But there's a whole lot of other things I do as a parent. I'm trying to instill in them good morals and good values and education and religious upbringing and trying to provide all of these things. So if I'm not available to do that, who's going to do that? Money doesn't replace that stuff. It's not like the parent can be replaced by putting a bag of money on the kitchen table, which is essentially what a lot of people do with the life insurance. They just, it's very common for families to just simply say with the life insurance, all to my spouse and then to the kids. It's all going to go to my spouse. And then if she passes away at the same time as me, it's going to go to the kids. But if we're doing this kind of planning, to plan for the contingencies, to plan for the what ifs that could really destroy the family and the kids and the whatever, then even though it may be statistically unlikely, what are we doing it for if we're not planning for the contingency of my wife and I both passing away at the same time? Because that can happen. It happens. And if it does happen, we're not replaced by a bag of money, right? So, yeah, the money's important, but it's also important who we're putting in control of that money, because, again, my guys are little. My kids are little. And so there's a couple of different people that we need to think about. One is, who's going to be the children's guardian? The guardian is the person who, at least from a legal standpoint, stands in the shoes of the parent, determines where the child is going to be raised, determines what school, what religion. They step into the role of the parent. With a lot of our clients, though, we don't leave it just at guardianship because of a couple of reasons. One, if you leave the money to the kid directly, the guardian would be in control of the money until your child reaches the age of majority, 18, 21, depending on who's counting. But then, the kid just kind of gets the money at that point. And from my standpoint, let's say it is a 7-figure life insurance proceed. I don't think it's the right idea to just give my 18-year-old future child $1 million on his 18th birthday. That is not the right way to go about this. I would not be where I am if I had $1 million on my 18th birthday. And if you're listening to this show and you're honest with yourself, you would have made some different decisions if you had $1 million in your bank account on your 18th birthday. And not all those decisions would have been good ones. And so just because the government thinks that an 18-year-old is an adult doesn't mean that an 18-year-old is going to make adult-like decisions. And so I suggest that we need to run some terms and conditions around that money a little bit longer. So what's that look like? Well, now we're talking about creating a trust, because if we just give it to the kid gets it upon reaching age of majority. But if we can hold it in a trust for an extended period of time, I can hold money in trust until age 25 or age 30 for my kids. It's like a little present for the kids, except just like on Christmas morning, my kids get the presents, and some of them we set aside for later. You can't go and burn through all of it all at one time. You can't eat all the candy canes in one sitting. You save some of this for later, because if you burn it all at one time, then you're gonna be upset later, and you're not gonna have a good time later, right? So we need to make sure that the money lasts. And so if we're giving them this inheritance, this trust, we got to have that thing last for a while. And typically anymore, I'm seeing people leave the money in trust until like age 30, 25, 30, sometimes longer. But here's the other thing that is a benefit of having the trust is we often encourage our clients to build in some check and balances at this point. So if my brother is the one who we name as the guardian of the children, perhaps my wife's brother, or perhaps one of my other siblings should be the trustee of the money. So now you've got two people involved in these decisions. The guardian says, we want to do this thing, we want to move into this place, I want to buy the 16-year-old this car. And the trustee says, yes, no, maybe so. And now we've at least got two eyes on the thing, because one of the challenges and one of the reasons that that this type of planning is necessary is because way too often that money that you're now trusting somebody to be in control of for the benefit of your child is just too big of a temptation. It's just too readily available. It's just too easy. There's just not enough accountability. And there have been, buku cases around the country where you have the guardians essentially pillaging those funds, and they didn't really get to where you want them to go. And I think that some of that can be thwarted by having a little bit of check and balance, by having the guardian named as the guardian for the kid, trustee is a trustee of the money. The guardian and the trustee work together to try to come up with a plan that is in the child's best interest on when they can access the money and how they can access the money and what are we using it for. And that to me is just practical planning. But tying it back to the comment before about a lot of families not having enough life insurance. Well, okay, if the will creates this trust, or if the estate plan creates a trust for the benefit of the children, that trust needs to be funded with that life insurance policy. Because I could write you the world's best trust, but if you leave all your life insurance money to your kid outright, you just sidestepped all this planning we're doing. So good estate planning, the plan, the documents are a component of it, but the entire plan also incorporates the idea that we've got to fund the plan correctly. We got to make sure that the financial accounts, the beneficiary designations line up with what the documents are doing. This is one of the reasons why you can't do the online legal Zoom stuff. You can't do that because that's a document, but far and away, a majority of the people that do that screw it up because they don't really know what they're doing. They tell themselves all I need is a will, right? I just need a document. But a document does not equal a plan. A plan incorporates documents, but it also incorporates tax strategy, and it also incorporates a conversation with the financial advisor, and it also incorporates coordination of the beneficiary designations, or perhaps asset retitling. And if we've done that kind of planning, now we've crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and made sure that the plan works well. So if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you and you think, oh, I've got a will, but we never changed the beneficiary designations, well, then I suggest to you don't really have a good estate plan. And perhaps we can get together. So if you want some more information on how we do this and how you can get it done, go to secklerlawfirm.com. Now, when you go to Seckler Law Firm, and that's SECHLER lawfirm.com, you're going to find a couple of things there. You're going to find some resources that you'll be, I hope, will find beneficial. So you can come to one of our upcoming workshops. We have some in January. We have them every month. Come to one of our education workshops at our office in Cranberry, where we teach you all about wills, all about trusts, all about how to plan. For older families, retirees, and whatnot, we talk a lot about protecting assets from long-term care expenses. And for parents of young children, we talk a lot about making sure that the trust and the beneficiary designations, everything is lined up. Another resource you can check out is at my website, secklerlawfirm.com. You'll find a link for what's called the Life and Legacy course. Now, with the Life and Legacy course, you can get a lot of the information. This is really designed for the younger families, the parents of young kids. You can essentially watch a series of videos that we put together at your own leisure. You answer some questions while watching the videos. We get the answers. Then we follow up with a Zoom call to talk to you about your choices and make sure that we're on the same page, making sure that you're doing the right thing. Between what you do in the online course and the half-an-hour conversation with one of our attorneys, now we've got the information to start working on documents. Now there could be some more meetings to complete the plan, but the biggest reason why most young families don't go do estate planning is because it's a pain in the neck to get it done. I don't want to take a day off of work to go see some lawyer, and my spouse has to take the same day off of work, and we got to find somebody to watch the kids, and we got to do all this work, and we got to pay all this money, and I don't even know if I like the guy, but I'm invested this much because I took time off off the work and whatnot. And so, because of all those objections, that's why we created the Life and Legacy course. The Life and Legacy course is designed to save you a meeting or two, to save you from having to take all that time off of work, but also to get you a good estate plan, not just a document. And so, if that's of interest to you, go to secularlawfirm.com, find the Life and Legacy course, check it out, schedule the appointment with one of our lawyers, and we'll get you hooked up. We'll get you hooked up with a good plan. So, going back to the situation we were talking about with the estate plan and the will that creates a trust for the little guys, and we're going to run that until age 25 or 30. The next question is, well, okay, then what happens at age 25 or 30? And what most plans do is they just end that trust. The trust just ends. And then the kid gets all the money at age 25 or age 30. But that's not how we really like to do it here. How we like to do it is the trust doesn't end. The money continues to be in the trust for the benefit of your child even after he's reached or she has reached the age of majority, whatever we're going to call it. Let's say it's 30 years old. But instead of all that money just distributing out to the kid at age 30, we continue to hold it in trust. But what changes is now the kid can become his own trustee. So rather than distributing all the money out of the trust to the kid, we give control of the money in the trust to the kid. Now, why? Well, getting back to this whole concept of leaving the legacy and leaving this essentially this gift to the kid. Now we got this box with all the money in it, and before the box with the money in it, there was a trustee, somebody we trust giving money to the kid. Now the kid is in control of the box. The kid has access to the money. But what's interesting about continuing to hold the money in trust rather than outright ownership is the dollars in that trust forevermore are protected from that kid's issues like divorces and lawsuits and creditor issues. So we can continue to have the money for the benefit of your kid, but not for their creditors and predators. When we're working with families of little kids, usually the biggest concern is getting the kid to adulthood. But when we're working with families where they have adult children, young adult children, 20s, the biggest concern that they want to talk about with their kids is maybe there's still some poor decision making going on, but a bigger concern is what happens if my daughter gets a divorce? She's been hanging out with this guy. I'm not really sold on this guy. What happens if my wife gets a divorce, or if my daughter gets a divorce after she gets the inheritance? Is the money gone? And we like to answer that question by just simply the daughter doesn't own the money. The daughter is a trustee of a trust for her benefit. She can get the money when she wants, but her potential divorce and her potential lawsuit creditors and her potential other issues cannot get to the money. And so, thinking through these things, thinking through how do I want my family to be treated? How do I want my kids to be raised? How do I want my kids to experience coming into some money as a young adult? How do I want to hold the money? And for older families, if your kids are already grown up, the question usually is around, well, what happens if I get sick? Is my wife going to be okay? If I have to go to the nursing home, is my spouse going to be okay? There's really only a couple of types of people that deal with that question, right? One is they just don't deal with it. They just ignore it. And everything's going to work out okay. I know there's people going broke in nursing homes. I know the nursing home is well over $100,000 a year. But I'm just going to ignore the problem and pretend like I'm not going to end up as one of those people, even though the Alzheimer's Association is telling us that 1 in 3 seniors ends up with dementia, right? So one person just chooses to ignore it because it's not fun to think about. The other type of person is kind of terrified by this issue, and they're thinking about it all the time. And those people end up working with us, and we usually end up putting their assets into a trust to protect it from that issue. And if you want to know how to do that, come to one of our workshops and we'll teach you. You can find it at secularlawfirm.com, SECHLER, lawfirm.com, and we'll teach you how to be good stewards of the money, protect the assets for your kids, your spouse, rather than losing it all to these crazy government rules that make you go broke if you need long-term care. All right, so I hope that this show was good. I hope that it wasn't too unsettling on a Christmas morning. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas to you. Remember that what we do on this show is for your education, your information. This is not legal advice. If you have a legal problem, you should hire a lawyer. We're available at seclerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com, or you can give us a shout, 724-841-1393, and we'd love to help you out. Thank you for listening to the show this week. Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year if you don't check out the show next weekend, and God bless. Hope you have a great week and a wonderful holiday.